Hey guys, what's going on? It's Dan, and I am back again. For those of you who didn't know, the VBA Season 3 has ended. All of my playoff matches I'm going to link in the description, but they are on the VBA's official YouTube page, commentated third party. And I was able to retain my championship this year. So I just wanted to give a quick breakdown of the team, sort of my draft process, and just give a quick champion report on the season. So, the draft this season was pretty interesting. It was scheduled the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and I already had a flight booked from Arizona to DC that day, so I was not necessarily going to be fully available to draft, so I needed to have a designee for the draft. So obviously I got my front office, Ryan, to draft on my behalf, but because of that, it really caused me to need to have a lot more planning to go into the draft as opposed to just winging it like I was able to do in Season 2. Because I wouldn't be drafting my own team, Ryan would be drafting it, so he needed to have like, okay, this is where Dan wants here. And also it was a more unfamiliar format, so it took a little bit of experimenting around to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. So we identified speed control as really valuable. Crobat in Tier 2 stood out as probably one of the best options in the game in the format because it can't be faked out. It's got base 130 speed and Tailwind. So it was almost guaranteed Tailwind every game. And Marowak A in Tier 2 is something else that we identified as very powerful. With base 45 speed under Tailwind, it could actually outspeed base 130s if I wanted it to. So setting that up next to Crobat was sort of mode 1 of our prep. But we also knew that Rillaboom, Incineroar, and NDDF seemed like the three best options in the format. Picking 7th, I didn't think I'd have the option at any of them, so we planned a different draft, but we would audible into one of those three if one of them fell. Indeedee did fall, which meant I didn't think I was going to be getting my Marowak A Crobat plan, but I was actually able to get all three in the first 3 rounds, which felt phenomenal for my team. And then Liepard was not part of the plan. I had Slurpuff as sort of my speed control Indeedee support unburdened Pokemon, but Sasori ended up sniping that around I wanted it, so we went with Liepard, which ended up being the steal of the draft. I felt like Liepard was phenomenal, but I will get more into the specifics of Liepard later. And then low-tier weather looked really good to me. I believe both Abomasnow and Arctivish ended up being in Tier 4 when I got them, so being able to fill out the bottom of my draft with just an incredibly powerful Hail mode, base 180 attack, base 180 power Fishious Rend, even off of a 90 attack Arctivish, is still going to hit like an absolute truck in the format. So that being able to get that low-tier Hail mode really cemented the team overall. But into the team itself, so the first thing that we're looking at is the speed control. Crobat and Aromatisse, due to their abilities, Crobat not being able to be faked out, Aromatisse not being able to be taunted, they can both effectively get the speed control of their choice. However, I wanted it. Like, if I wanted to set Tailwind, I set Tailwind in a game. If I wanted Trick Room, I set Trick Room. Indeedee really helps with the Trick Room setting as well. So my speed control was just really consistent, and I got to pick the mode. And they both did decent damage throughout the season as well, which, especially the Aromatisse, it surprised me, the output, but I was happy with it. Rotom I also have marked as a speed control option because Electro Web was sort of the idea there, but it just pretty consistently got outclassed by a lot of my team, and if there was something to change about my team, it would be that Rotom, but looking at a Tier 4 slot, there's not too much to complain about there. But both Crobat and Aromatisse, because of what I was doing with them, I knew that I wanted my main attackers to be between base 45 and base 85 speed because they could that was the range where you could effectively take advantage of both Tailwind and Trick Room depending on builds. So I could choose to attack an opponent fast or slow. Which leads me into the beaters. So the beaters are my main attackers outside of an obvious mode that I'll be talking about later. That would be supported by my speed control. Marowak A I thought was going to be my strongest beater, and it was really, really good, and I brought it a lot, but Nidoking was just absolutely insane in the format. It hit every calc I wanted it to with sort of the Life Orb, Sheer Force sets. Just absolutely massive damage, great coverage. It felt like an absolute all-star in this format. Stonejourner only made it to one game. It came to 2 sets, including the finals, where I finally got to bust out my playoff Stonejourner set, which was 252 special defense careful with assault vest and some HP, which actually it had enough bulk to survive a Scarf Blastoise water spout. So my Stonejourner set was really cool, and I wish it could have come more. And on a team without Marowak and Nidoking, it probably would have. But trying to compete with those offensive options, just those two have great offenses without having to compensate for a lackluster special bulk, whereas Stonejourner has to compensate, so it's just not as good in most weeks as those two. But a lot of other teams, Stonejourner would be coming a lot more consistently, and I really wish I could have brought it a lot more this season. Berserker also didn't come a lot, but every time it came, I thought it did above and beyond what I wanted it to do. Its damage output is actually really high in the format. It has access to Steely Spirit and Tough Claws. Tough Claws close combat just destroys things. Steely Spirit, Iron Head obviously destroys things. So it was also really good, but again, it had to compete against the Marowak and the Nidoking, and there were just a lot of times where I wanted to bring it, but the other two just did the job better. But I would 100% draft Berserker again, especially in a non-max format. Then we get into the weather mode. So Arctivish ended up being my most brought Pokemon to games by 1 over Liepard. The Fossil Weather Sleepers are really good, especially in Tier 4. That's absolutely insane value that you get from Arctivish, because base 55 speed, you can outspeed Dragapult by 1 point if you want to. So Arctivish is just incredibly good in the format. Like, there's just no way around it. Vicious Rend was great. The special sets were a bit more inconsistent, but I liked running them, especially the Power Meteor Beam sets, because I could have consistent damage that wasn't Vicious Rend. However, Arctivish doesn't get access to Scald. Its best special offensive move for water is Hydro Pump, which is really inconsistent, which is why I tended more towards the physical set as the season went on. Abomasnow I was learning throughout the season. Early season, I didn't feel great about it a lot. I tried some Resist Berries. Focus Sash a couple times actually worked pretty well, but normally I think of Scarf Pokemon as around base 70 speed, because base 70 you can outspeed base 130, but because of the format, there actually weren't as many base 130 options. So being able to Scarf Abomasnow, it could often be the fastest thing on the field, and then that Blizzard would deal a substantial chunk of damage, and Arctivish could just clean up everything else. Overall, this mode was just under-tiered for the power level that it provided. It gave my team a whole extra angle to attack that had to be prepped for, and if it wasn't, it would just steamroll teams. And being able to just steamroll teams with 2 tier 4s without dedicated prep it was really a luxury in team building. So the support for my team, Indeedee threatened to let me do whatever I want consistently. Like, even though I didn't bring it as much as some other things, I understand in prep, opponents could never bring priority moves very consistently, or if they did, I see Indeedee on Team Preview, they'd always be afraid to click it because you never know when I'm just going to switch Indeedee in and blank it. Liepard, though, was the absolute MVP of my team. It came every week except for week 6. And, Fake Out, Charm, Fake Tears, Encore, Taunt, Foul Play, Snarl. Like, there's just so many things that Liepard can and did do throughout the season that it was hard to prep for everything that Liepard could do, and man, it just opened up everything else on my team. And Liepard Nidoking actually ended up being one of my more consistent leads, because Thunder Wave giving me speed advantage with Nidoking if I wanted it, Fake Tears with Nidoking could basically OHKO everything with those two in the game. So it was Liepard was an absolute MVP, and one thing I want to mention is that in one of the team previews, Indeedee and Liepard were mentioned as having anti-synergy. But I actually think they work really well together, because weeks I brought in Didi, I could just bring an Unburdened Lipard, and I've got the fastest support in the game. And if an opponent brought Prankster, they can't do anything with it. And weeks I didn't bring Indeedee, opponents couldn't really bring Prankster for fear that I would bring Indeedee, and I could bring Prankster Lipard and have the only Prankster option. So they actually worked really well with each other, especially in building. So some closing thoughts on the team. Okay, so personally, I try not to have a specific style when I play, and this team was very different than what I played with in Season 2. In Season 2, I played with a sort of hyper offense. I'm either going to stomp you with Coco, stomp you with Sun, or stomp you under Trick Room, and I'm going to try and max turn 1 or 2 and win this game in 5 turns. This team, although it did have some, like, I'm going to go hyper offense and zoom modes, a lot of it was, I'm going to neuter your damage potential with the Lipard, I'm going to grind it out, and late game, I'm just going to be able to beat you, because in the late game, my threats are going to have speed, they're going to have power, and they're going to be able to beat whatever you have left. So it was a much more late game focused team than last season. Prep on a given week actually felt pretty easy, because I just felt like there were just so many different viable sets I could bring any given week, and I just had to choose the 6 that I wanted to bring, and my opponents knew that there were so many viable sets I had to bring, and they probably couldn't beat all of them and had to try and choose what I was going to bring, and if they got it right, they had a good shot, but if they guessed a couple of them wrong, and then I've got some sets that are uncontested, I'm more likely to win. My team felt like it had the power level advantage every week, so my opponent would have to react to what I bring as opposed to me having to react to what my opponent brought. And I think Goomer sort of touched on that in his commentary for our quarterfinal match, saying like, okay, we know Dan can't bring everything, so hopefully we can beat what he does bring. And that's sort of how I felt playing throughout the season is, if I could bring everything, this team would be close to unbeatable, but I can't. So there are going to be holes in the 6 that I bring, because there are always holes in the 6. But I know that on my 11, I will have the tools to beat anything that an opponent has. I never went into a matchup thinking, there's absolutely nothing I can do here, and they've just got a team advantage. So on paper, this team felt like it should have been the favorite every match. And then this last note, I know I had my team as number 1 before the season for Kanto preseason, but I actually didn't think it was the best in either division. I thought Goomer had the best team in the league, but after the season, seeing how things played out and realizing how much I underestimated sort of the Lipard Nidoking mode of this team, because when I was thinking about my team, I was thinking more about, Crobat, Marowak, Ryu-turn Crobat into Stonejourner, Protect Stonejourner, Earthquake the Marowak, deal mass, like that sort of thing, and also the Hail. But really, the Nidoking Lipard mode surprised me, and I think that puts my team as probably the best team in either division. But thank you guys for watching. I just wanted to record a quick video of my thoughts for how my team performed, the team building exercises, and just let you guys know I enjoyed playing this season, and I am looking forward to Season 4. So up until Season 4, this is your Season 2 and still Season 3 champ, Dan, signing off. I will see you guys next time. Bye.